Elias lay in his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling of his cabin. The faint hum of the ship Orcs filled the silence like a heartbeat, steady and endless. Space outside was infinite and dark. Stars scattered across the void like tiny sparks of frozen fire. For most of the crew, the sound of the ship was comfort. For Elias, it was only a reminder of how far from home he was. Sleep did not come easily to him anymore. He would close his eyes, but his mind would not stop. He thought about Earth, the smell of wet soil after rain, the sound of city streets at night, the warmth of people's laughter. Out here there was none of that. Only silence, only cold metal, only duty. He turned on his side, pulling the thin blanket tighter. His body was heavy with exhaustion, but his thoughts kept spinning. He thought about his crewmates, the strange beings who worked beside him every day. Some were human like him, but most were not. The galaxy was wide, and the Council wanted mixed crews, unity through diversity. It sounded good in speeches, but in practice it was lonely. He tried to ignore the ache in his chest. He wanted to belong, but he always felt like the outsider, the single human in a sea of alien voices. Even their laughter felt different. Even their silences felt heavy. At last, his eyes began to drift closed. Just as sleep finally touched him, something changed. There was weight. At first, he thought it was just the blanket slipping. But no, this was heavier, softer, strange. His eyes snapped open, and his breath caught in his throat. Someone was on top of him. The dim blue glow of the cabin lights revealed a shape crouched over him, a figure with silver skin that shimmered faintly like moonlight caught in water. 4 luminous eyes stared down at him, glowing with a soft white light. It was Kaylee. She was his crewmate, part of the alien species called the Are, beings known for their grace, their silence, and their loyalty. They were not aggressive, but they were powerful. Their bodies were strong, their senses sharper than human ones. Kaylee, like most of her kind, rarely showed emotion. She was calm, distant, and formal, until now. Her hands, tipped with delicate claws, rested on his chest. She held herself low, her face close to his, her silver hair spilling around them like a curtain. Elias's heart thudded against his ribs, and he swallowed hard. "Kaylee," he whispered, his voice rough with fear and confusion. Her head tilted slightly, her glowing eyes unblinking. Then in a soft voice that trembled like glass, she said, "Do not move." Elias froze. He wanted to shout, to push her away, to call the others, but something about her tone stopped him. She was not threatening him, she was pleading, her hands pressed lightly against his chest. He could feel the points of her claws, but they did not dig in. Her weight pinned him, but not in violence. More like desperation. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tight. Kaylee's gaze softened, the glow in her eyes flickering. "I need something. Something only you can give." Elias's mouth went dry. His heart raced, and he could almost feel her body tense at the sound of it. "What do you mean?" he asked. Her silver hair brushed against his neck as she leaned closer. Her voice lowered, a whisper meant only for him. "I need your heartbeat," Elias blinked. He thought he had misheard. "My heartbeat?" "Yes," she whispered again. Her hands trembled on his chest. "I must hear it. I must feel it. It is life to me, please." Elias stared at her in disbelief. His body was rigid, every muscle locked between fear and confusion. What did she mean? What kind of alien request was this? Was it a ritual, a trick, some hidden danger? But when he looked into her glowing eyes, he didn't see threat. He saw something else, something raw, something almost human. She was desperate. She was breaking. "Kaylee, I don't understand," he whispered. Her forehead touched his, a gesture that felt intimate, almost painful in its vulnerability. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "You cannot understand, but I cannot live without it. I need the sound of another heart steady and alive. Without it, I will fade. Please, human, please let me listen." Her breath shook as if she were holding back tears. "If you refuse, I will leave. But my silence may kill me." The cabin was silent except for his pounding chest. Elias lay there, his thoughts racing. He was scared. He was confused. But above all, he saw her. This alien crewmate, always strong, always distant, now trembling above him like a fragile thing. She wasn't a warrior in this moment. She wasn't a soldier of the array. She was lonely, afraid. And though Elias did not know why, though he did not understand her strange request, he felt the weight of it deep in his own chest. Slowly, carefully, he whispered, All right. Just tell me what you need me to do, Kaylee shivered. And for the first time since he had met her eyes glistened with something unmistakable. Hope. Elias lay frozen under Kaylee's weight, his breath shallow, his chest rising and falling too quickly. Her silver skin gleamed faintly in the dim cabin light, her glowing eyes staring down at him with an intensity that felt almost unbearable. He had expected an explanation, maybe even some alien ritual or protocol. Instead, she had said something that made no sense at all. She wanted his heartbeat. Elias struggled to understand. His heart was just a human heart beating the way it always had. Why would it matter to her? Why would it matter to anyone? But Kaylee's trembling voice stayed with him. Without it, I will fade. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't manipulation. It sounded like truth, raw and painful. Kaylee, he whispered, his voice tight. Why me? There are others. There are more of your people on this ship. Why come to me? For a long moment, she didn't answer. Her 4 eyes closed slowly as though gathering courage. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he had ever heard. Because you are alive in a way they are not. Your heartbeat is strong. It is warm. The others, she paused, struggling for words in the human tongue. The others are bound already. Their silence belongs to someone else. I have no one. And without someone, I lose myself. Her words pressed against him heavier than her body. Elias could hear the crack in her voice, the hint of something like shame. She who always carried herself with dignity, now confessed a weakness that cut her to the bone. He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to push her away, to call this madness, to demand answers from the captain or the council. But another part of him, the part that saw the way she trembled, the way her claws barely touched him as though afraid of breaking him, couldn't do it. He swallowed. What do I have to do? Kaylee's eyes opened again, glowing softly in the dark. For a moment, they didn't look alien at all. They looked almost human. Nothing, she whispered. Just let me stay. Let me listen. Her body shifted carefully, gently lowering herself until her face rested against his chest. The cool smoothness of her skin brushed against him as she pressed her head to his heart. Elias stiffened at first, every muscle taut. But then he felt it. His own heartbeat steady, pounding against her ear. Kaylee let out a sound, soft and shaking, like a breath held too long, finally released. Her hands clutched his shirt lightly, claws grazing the fabric but not piercing it. Her entire frame trembled as though she had been starving and now at last had found food. For several long moments the cabin was silent except for the steady thump of his heart. Elias stared at the ceiling, unsure if he was dreaming. Then he felt it. Wetness. Kaylee was crying. The tiny drops slid down his chest, soaking into his shirt. Each one burned against his skin, not because of pain, but because of the depth of her need. Elias had never seen her cry. The array were proud, disciplined, always composed. Kaylee especially was known for her calm strength, her cold control in the middle of chaos. To see her like this, clinging to him, weeping quietly, broke something inside him. Kaylee, he whispered, not sure what else to say. Her voice came muffled against his chest. You do not know what this means. You cannot know, my people. We are born incomplete. Without bond, without heartbeat, we wither. Most of us find another quickly, before the silence becomes too deep. But her body shuddered. No one chose me. I was left, I am. Defective. Elias's breath caught. Defective. The word sounded sharp, cruel. You're not defective, he said firmly, almost angry at the thought. But she only shook her head, her hair brushing against his neck. I am. My people see it. I feel it. Without a bond, I should not have lived this long. But I have, and now I cannot hold on any longer. Her claws dug slightly into his shirt, not piercing, but gripping desperately. When I heard your heart, I knew. It called to me. It pulled me. I could not stay away. Elias closed his eyes, his own chest aching. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't wanted this weight. But here it was. His heartbeat, her lifeline. Slowly, almost without thinking, he raised a hand and placed it gently on her back. Her body was trembling, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. It's all right, he whispered. I'm here. I'll let you listen. Kaylee froze for a moment as though his touch shocked her. Then slowly she relaxed, melting into him, her breath coming easier. For the first time since Elias had joined the crew, He felt her guard fall completely. She wasn't the composed alien soldier anymore. She wasn't the mysterious array who kept her distance. She was simply Kaylee, fragile, lonely, clinging to the sound of his heart as though it was the only thing keeping her alive. And maybe it was. The minutes passed slowly, stretching into something that felt timeless. Elias lay there, still and quiet, letting her listen, letting her cry, letting her breathe with him. Eventually, Kaylee's sobs softened. Her trembling eased. Her body grew still, resting lightly against him. Her voice came again, soft and broken, but filled with something new. "Thank you." 2 words whispered into the silence. Elias felt his own throat tighten. He didn't understand what this meant, not fully. He didn't know what would happen tomorrow or what kind of bond she spoke of. But in that moment he understood this much. She needed him, not for his strength, not for his skills, not even for his humanity. She needed his heartbeat. And for reasons he couldn't explain, Elias found that he wanted to give it. The next morning, Elias woke with a strange heaviness in his chest. Kaylee was already awake, sitting near the small viewport of the cabin, her 4 eyes reflecting the pale stars outside. She didn't move as he stirred, didn't speak, just watched him. Elias felt the memory of last night press down on him like a weight he couldn't shake. His heart still thumped faster than usual, not from fear alone, but from the intensity of what had happened. He had let her listen. He had let her hold on to him, and now, he didn't know how to face the rest of the crew. Kaylee turned her head slightly, and for a moment their eyes met. There was something unspoken there, something fragile, something that seemed to plead, "Don't push me away." Elias rubbed his face and tried to speak casually, though his voice felt strange in the quiet cabin. "Kaylee, about last night." She tilted her head, her eyes calm but still glimmering with that quiet desperation. "It must remain our secret, Elias whispered. His mind raced. "You mean, you don't want anyone else to know?" "Yes," she said simply. "No one must know. Not yet, not until I am certain." Her words made sense in part, but they also made his stomach twist. Secrets were heavy, and carrying this secret with an alien crewmate who now depended on him, it was frightening. He tried to shake off the fear and stand. But Kaylee's hand, delicate yet firm, caught his wrist. "Do not leave me," she said softly. "Not yet. My bond. It will falter if you do." Elias froze. Her word bond was strange, almost sacred. He had heard rumors among the crew about array bonds, rituals that were intimate, private, and powerful. But he never expected to be part of one, and yet here he was, the center of her need, her survival, her loneliness. His mind filled with doubts. What if this is wrong? What if I misinterpret it? What if I hurt her? But then he saw her eyes, 4 glowing orbs filled with vulnerability. Not command, not threat, but pleading. He breathed slowly. "All right," he whispered. "I'm not leaving, but we need to be careful. The crew, they can't know. Not yet." Kaylee nodded, though her relief was clear. Her hands relaxed slightly, but life aboard the Orcs did not slow for human fears. The ship demanded its routine. Tasks, maintenance, drills, training, reports. They did not pause for an alien-human bond forming in secrecy. Elias tried to focus. He went to the bridge, tried to act normal, but the memory of her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, kept replaying in his mind. His focus wavered. He almost forgot a routine diagnostic on the engine module. Almost caused an alarm. And that was when trouble started. During the midday shift, another crew member, Joran, a young array engineer, approached him. Joran's eyes were sharp, curious, and always observant. "Elias," he said casually, "you've been different lately." Elias froze. He forced a casual shrug. "Different? How?" "You look distracted, sleepy. You walk like you're carrying a load." Joran's 4 eyes narrowed slightly, not accusatory, but perceptive. "Are you hiding something?" Elias swallowed hard. Should he tell the truth? Could he? Kaylee had begged for secrecy. She had trusted him. "No," he said finally. "Just adjusting to life in space. That's all." Joran studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Humans are fragile sometimes," he said, and walked away. But the moment lingered. Joran's words echoed in Elias's mind. Fragile. He realized that he was fragile. He was human. And in a way he had never felt before, he was responsible for someone else's survival, someone who could not live without him, someone who depended on him in ways he barely understood. Back in his cabin, Kaylee waited silently. Her eyes were soft when he entered. "Are you all right?" she asked. Elias sat heavily on the edge of his bunk. "I'm worried," he admitted. "The crew, they're starting to notice things. I'm afraid something will go wrong." Kaylee tilted her head. "Then stay with me tonight. Let me hear your heartbeat again. Let us strengthen the bond, so that nothing else matters." Her words were simple yet heavy with meaning. Elias realized he was trembling slightly, not from fear alone but from the weight of responsibility. She had trusted him. She had relied on him. And now every glance from a crew member, every suspicion felt like a threat, not to him but to her. That night he lay down again, Kaylee beside him. Her presence was both comforting and terrifying. He could feel her warmth, the subtle vibration of her body as she pressed against him, seeking his heartbeat. And as she listened, her trembling slowly faded, replaced by a calm focus he had never seen in her before. But the tension did not disappear. Elias couldn't ignore it. Every time someone knocked at the cabin door, his chest tightened. Every sound in the corridors made him flinch. Keeping this secret was like walking on the edge of a knife. Yet, despite the fear, there was something powerful in it. He realized that he was capable of something he had never imagined, caring for someone else completely. Not for duty, not for loyalty, not even for love, though maybe a part of him felt that too, but simply for survival, for trust, for life itself. Kaylee's hands rested lightly on his chest, her claws just grazing his shirt. Her eyes glimmered in the dark. "Do not let go," she whispered. Elias swallowed. His heart raced, not just from fear, but from the strange, intense connection he now felt with her. He knew one thing with certainty. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he could not abandon her. Not now, not ever. The first fear had arrived, not of danger from the universe, not of accidents in space, but the fear of failing someone who had trusted him completely. And that fear was heavier than any starship debris, heavier than any enemy out in the void. It pressed against him, and yet, it made him stronger. The next night, the ship was quieter than usual. The corridors were empty, lights dimmed to conserve energy, and the distant hum of the engines felt softer, almost like a lullaby. Elias sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the wall as if it held the answers to his swirling thoughts. Kaylee entered quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She moved like a shadow, silent but deliberate, her 4 eyes fixed on him. Elias felt his chest tighten instantly, a mix of anticipation and fear coursing through him. I need you," Kaylee whispered, almost inaudible as she approached. Elias nodded, his throat dry. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had promised her last night, but each time the moment came, it felt heavier than the night before. She crouched beside him on the bunk, careful not to disturb his balance. Her body was warm, surprisingly so considering the silver glow of her skin. Elias's heart beat faster at her closeness, not entirely from fear. There was something about her presence, something raw and urgent that demanded attention, demanded care. Kaylee tilted her head, studying him with a focus that made him feel both exposed and necessary. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Elias swallowed and nodded. I am." For a moment there was silence. The only sound was the distant hum of the ship and the soft hiss of air circulation. Then Kaylee moved closer, resting her forehead lightly against his chest. Her silver hair brushed his collarbone, cool and silky. Elias could feel her breath against him, steady and slow at first, then quickening slightly. Her hands rested on either side of his chest, claws grazing the fabric of his shirt, but not breaking the skin. She leaned in closer, her body almost melting into his, and Elias could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat, or at least the vibration of her own strange, alien pulse aligning with his. "Listen," she whispered. "Just listen." Elias closed his eyes. He felt her head pressing lightly against his chest, felt her claws adjust to avoid hurting him, felt her warmth and weight pressing gently, insistently. He could hear the faintest sounds of her breathing, the soft tremors of her body, and he realized something important. She was afraid. Not of him, not of the ship, but of the silence she had endured for so long. Her lips hovered near his shoulder as she spoke again. Your heart, it is life to me. The sound, the beat, it tells me I am not alone, that I can endure, that I can survive. Elias's chest tightened. Her words were strange, yes, but the emotion behind them was undeniable. She clung to him desperately as if his very existence was the tether keeping her soul together. You don't understand, she murmured almost to herself. Without this I fade. I wither, I am lost. Her body trembled slightly against him. Elias instinctively placed a hand on her back, feeling the subtle shivers beneath her silver skin. You're not lost, he said softly. You're here. You're alive, and I'm not going anywhere. Kaylee's eyes glimmered. She let out a small broken sound, half relief, half fear, and pressed closer. The hum of the ship seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of his heartbeat and her urgent breathing. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time had no meaning in that quiet cocoon. Elias could feel the steady thrum of his own chest against hers, a rhythm so simple yet so essential, and Kaylee clung to it not as a ritual or a command, but as a lifeline. Stay, she whispered finally, her voice trembling. Do not leave me. Not tonight. Not ever if you can help it. Elias swallowed hard. He realized for the first time that this was not just a strange alien request. It was trust, pure, raw, unspoken trust that he had never experienced before. And with trust came responsibility, a weight heavier than any starship, heavier than any mission. He nodded, letting her cling to him, letting her hear the heartbeat she needed. And as he felt her tremble against him, he made a silent vow. No matter what challenges came, he would protect her. Not out of duty, not out of fear, but because she had allowed herself to be vulnerable, and he could not ignore that. Her breathing gradually slowed, the trembling eased, and she leaned her head fully against his chest. Elias felt a calm settle over him, a strange peace he hadn't known in months. The galaxy outside was still vast, dark, and dangerous, but in that tiny cabin on that narrow bunk they were safe. Kaylee's hands finally relaxed, resting lightly on his torso. She tilted her head to look at him, her four eyes soft, glimmering with an emotion Elias could not name. Gratitude, perhaps, or relief, or maybe something deeper. You are remarkable, she said softly, almost as if testing the word in her mouth. Not like the others. I do not know how to repay you. Elias shook his head. You don't need to repay me, he whispered. I'm glad I can help. She let out a small broken laugh, a sound so human it startled him. It is more than help. It is life. I will not forget this. Ever. For the first time, Elias understood the depth of her need. This was not a game, not a whim, not curiosity. This was survival, connection, trust, and hope, all wrapped into one fragile, trembling being clinging to him in the darkness. He could feel the tension in his own body ease slightly, replaced by a warmth he had not known before. It was strange, almost intoxicating, the sense that two lives, human and alien, could touch in a way that transcended species, culture, language, and distance. As the night wore on, Elias realized that he did not want this moment to end. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because he had glimpsed something rare and precious. The pure, unfiltered need of one being for another, and the quiet power of simply being there. And he knew, deep in his chest, that this was only the beginning. The days after that night passed like a strange, quiet storm. Elias moved through the corridors of the Orcs with a constant awareness, every step weighted by the secret he now carried. Kaylee was near him often, lingering at the edge of every hallway, standing beside him in silence, watching him with those four glowing eyes that seemed to pierce right through his thoughts. He loved it, in a way, loved the closeness, loved knowing he was keeping her alive in her own way. But he also hated it. Every glance from the other crew members, every whisper he caught in passing, made his chest tighten. Something about the way they looked at him, curious, wary, unsettled, made him feel exposed, as though the bond he shared with Kaylee was visible to them even when it wasn't. Duran had noticed first. The young array engineer had always been perceptive, and one morning on the bridge he confronted Elias. You've been distracted, Duran said, his voice casual but sharp. Your focus falters, your hands shake sometimes. Something is wrong. Elias froze, the words striking him like a physical blow. How could he explain? How could he say, I am holding the life of an alien crewmate in my chest, keeping her alive by letting her cling to me? No one would believe it. They might think him insane, or worse, that Kaylee was dangerous. I'm fine, Elias said finally, forcing a smile. Just adjusting to the mission, that's all. Duran's eyes narrowed, suspicion lingering, but he let it go. For now. Even so, Elias could feel the tension building inside him. Every time he looked at Kaylee, she seemed more fragile, more desperate, and he could feel the quiet panic beneath her calm exterior. It was as though she were waiting for him to fail, to falter, to leave her. One afternoon, while repairing a minor engine malfunction, Elias noticed her watching him from the corner of the workshop. Her glowing eyes were focused, but there was a subtle trembling in her stance. Her need was constant, pressing a weight he could not ignore. Kaylee, he whispered once the others had gone. Do you need me all the time? Her gaze flickered, almost guilty. I cannot explain fully, she admitted softly. It is survival. Not comfort, not desire. I need your heartbeat. When I hear it, I endure. When I do not, I falter. I weaken. Elias swallowed hard. The words made his chest ache, heavier than any spacesuit or gravity simulator. He realized that this was not a simple friendship, not a simple bond. He was literally keeping her alive. That night, the weight of it pressed down on him. He lay in his bunk, Kaylee beside him, her body pressed lightly against his as always. But instead of calm, he felt tension. He couldn't sleep. His mind was a storm of doubt and fear. What if something happens? He whispered, barely audible. What if I fail? Kaylee tilted her head, glowing eyes reflecting worry. You will not fail, she said. You are strong, but sometimes even strength falters. Her voice trembled slightly. Elias realized she was afraid not of the galaxy, not of danger, but of losing him. Losing his heartbeat. Losing the connection that kept her alive. Days later, a real test came. During a routine supply run outside the ship, a sudden meteor shower hit the small shuttle. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the crew scrambled for safety. Elias and Kaylee were pinned together in the cockpit, metal twisted around them. The world outside was chaos, debris spinning past like deadly sparks. Kaylee pressed herself to him instantly, seeking the heartbeat she depended on. Do not leave me, she cried, her voice breaking as metal bent around them. Do not take my heartbeat from me. Stay with me. Elias's hands shook as he tried to stabilize the controls. I'm here, he shouted. I'm not leaving you. Her body pressed against his, trembling violently, but her focus was sharp. She guided his hands subtly, her intuition uncanny. Together they managed to stabilize the shuttle, avoiding the worst of the meteor debris. But the panic in the cockpit had left them both exhausted, trembling, hearts racing. Later, as they floated in the secured cabin, Kaylee rested her forehead against his chest, her body still quivering. You saved me, she whispered. Again, you make me whole, Elias. I cannot survive without you. Elias felt a strange warmth inside him. He had saved her, yes, but it was more than that. She had saved him too in a way he could not explain. She had trusted him completely, relied on him in ways no one else ever had. And now he could never walk away, but the fear lingered. Every time he looked at her, he saw both need and fragility. Every time he thought about the crew noticing, about Duran's suspicion, about the whispers in the corridors, his stomach twisted. He was human. He was mortal, and he had taken responsibility for an alien life in a way that could kill him too if he faltered. That night, as Kaylee lay against him, Elias whispered, I won't let you down, not ever. I don't know what comes next, but I will stay. Always. Her eyes glimmered, tears reflecting the faint lights of the cabin. And I will hold on, she said softly. As long as your heartbeat calls to me, I will endure. I will survive. I will not fade. Elias realized something then, deeper than fear or duty. Humanity, he thought, was not about strength or skill or technology. It was about trust, about giving someone the courage to survive simply by being there. And for the first time in space, in the cold emptiness of the galaxy, Elias felt the true weight of what it meant to be human. He was not just a crewmate. He was her lifeline, her heartbeat, and he would not fail. The next mission was supposed to be routine, a simple scan of a nearby asteroid field. But in space, routine rarely stayed routine for long. Elias sat in the cockpit monitoring the instruments while Kaylee stood behind him, her eyes scanning the field with uncanny precision. Every so often she leaned slightly, brushing her hand against his shoulder, her presence both comforting and tense. "Stay alert," she whispered, her voice low, almost musical in its cadence. Elias nodded, heart racing not only from the usual danger of space travel, but from the constant awareness of her need pressed against him. He could feel her heartbeat, quick and uneven, syncing somehow with his own. It was comforting and terrifying all at once. Without warning, the shuttle jolted violently. A piece of debris struck the side, sending alarms blaring through the cabin. Lights flickered. Metal groaned. Elias's hands flew over the controls. "Hold on!" he shouted. Kaylee didn't scream. She pressed herself against him, her silver skin cold against his suit, her claws gripping his arm just enough to anchor herself. "Do not leave me," she cried, her voice trembling with raw emotion. "Your heartbeat. It keeps me alive." "Do not leave." The shuttle spun violently, metal scraping against metal. Elias struggled to stabilize it, sweat dripping into his eyes. Kaylee pressed closer, her forehead against his chest, her breathing shallow and fast. "Focus," she yelled. "You can do this." Elias felt a strange clarity in the chaos. Her presence, her need, her trust, it sharpened his senses. He could feel the rhythm of her breathing, the subtle pressure of her body guiding his hands, the urgency in her voice synchronizing with his heartbeat. Together, they maneuvered through the debris, dodging jagged rocks and twisted metal floating in the asteroid field. Every second was life or death, every movement a choice that could mean survival or oblivion. And then it happened. A massive shard of metal, spinning wildly, struck the shuttle, tearing a hole in the hull. Alarms shrieked. Oxygen levels dropped. The cabin shook violently. Elias was thrown against the console, pain shooting through his ribs. His vision blurred. Kaylee's voice rang out sharp and terrified. "Elias, stay with me." "Do not leave." Her claws dug into his suit, not harming him but holding him, anchoring him. Her body pressed against his, trembling with fear, with desperation, with raw, unfiltered need. I'm here," Elias gasped. "I'm not leaving you." But the shuttle was failing. Metal twisted, sparks flew, and the noise was deafening. He struggled to reach the emergency controls to stabilize their descent. Every muscle screamed. Every second stretched into eternity. Kaylee's voice broke into a desperate cry. "Your heartbeat. I cannot lose it. I cannot survive without it." Elias froze for a split second, panic rising in his chest. He could feel her trembling against him, see the fear in her four glowing eyes. And in that moment he realized something. She was not just afraid of space or the shuttle. She was afraid of losing him, losing his life, losing the connection that had become her lifeline. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing in her ears. Her trembling intensified, her claws gripping harder. Elias felt a surge of determination he had never known. He could not fail her, not now, not ever. With a sudden, desperate burst of strength, he yanked the shuttle upright, realigning it with the trajectory needed to exit the debris field. Alarms continued to scream. Metal groaned, but slowly, steadily, they stabilized. Kaylee pressed her forehead against his chest, breathing hard, tears sliding down her silver cheeks. You saved me," she whispered. "Again, you cannot know how much this means to me." Elias's own chest ached, not from exhaustion alone, but from the intensity of the moment. "We saved each other," he said quietly. I'll always stay with you. Always." She shivered, a mixture of relief and lingering fear, and whispered, "Your heartbeat. It is life itself. You are my world, Elias. I cannot exist without you." Her words pierced him, deeper than any alarm, deeper than any danger in the void outside. He had known fear. He had known isolation. He had known danger. But he had never known the weight of being the center of someone else's life so completely, so absolutely. The night after the mission, Elias lay on his bunk, Kaylee curled against him. He felt the slow, steady rhythm of her breathing, the subtle pulse of her life against his chest. He closed his eyes, exhaustion tugging at him, but also a strange warmth. "You are remarkable," she whispered softly. "Not like the others. You have given me life, Elias. I cannot repay you." He shook his head, exhausted but resolute. "You don't need to repay me," he said. "Being here, it's enough." Kaylee pressed closer, her body still trembling slightly, and murmured, I will not leave your side. As long as your heartbeat continues, I will endure. I will survive. I will not fade. Elias realized then fully the depth of what had happened. Humanity, he thought, was not measured by skill, strength, or knowledge. It was measured by courage, by trust, by the willingness to share life itself with someone who needed it utterly. And in the dark, quiet of the cabin with Kaylee clinging to him, he understood something profound. He was human, fragile, and alone in the galaxy, but he was capable of something stronger than fear, stronger than despair. He was capable of saving a life. And he was capable of holding it, holding her, holding the heartbeat that had become their world. The shuttle floated quietly in the vast darkness of space. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent and cold. But inside the cabin, a fragile warmth existed, one born of trust, of need, of life shared in a way that transcended everything else. Elias sat in the cockpit, his body still sore from the previous day's mission, but his mind was calmer than it had been in weeks. Kaylee was curled against him, her silver skin glowing softly in the dim light. Her 4 eyes, once full of panic and desperation, now held something else. Peace. You've done more than you know, she whispered, her voice almost a melody. You kept me alive when I could not keep myself. Elias shook his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. It's not just me, he said softly. You survived too. Together we made it. Kaylee's eyes softened. She rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. This bond, she murmured, it is beyond words, beyond our species. I do not know how to exist without it now. Elias felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. He had known fear, doubt, and loneliness. He had faced danger and uncertainty countless times in the galaxy. But nothing had prepared him for the gravity of being essential to someone's very life, for being the pulse that kept a being alive. He ran a hand gently along her back. You're not alone anymore, Kaylee, not ever. Her trembling eased completely this time. She leaned into him fully, her body relaxed, trusting. I understand now, she said softly. Humans are strange, yet powerful. You gave me life not by strength, but by choice, by being present. That is rare. That is worth more than any weapon, any knowledge in the galaxy. Elias swallowed, his own chest heavy with emotion. It's natural, he whispered. I couldn't leave you. I wouldn't leave you. Outside, the stars twinkled like distant eyes watching silently. Inside, the cabin was filled with the quiet resonance of life, a human heartbeat, an alien presence, and the invisible thread that tied them together. The days that followed were quieter. The ship continued its course through the galaxy, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Kaylee no longer trembled constantly. She no longer clung with desperation. She still sought him, still relied on his heartbeat, but now it was mutual. Elias felt a new sense of strength, a purpose he had never known. He was no longer just a human among aliens. He was a protector, a companion, a lifeline. The crew began to notice subtle changes too. Kaylee moved with confidence, her fear replaced by calm focus. She no longer flinched at loud noises or sudden movements. Elias's presence seemed to stabilize her in ways no one could explain. Joran noticed first. You've changed, the young array engineer said one morning on the bridge. Both of you. There's something different. A connection, perhaps? Elias smiled faintly. Perhaps, he said. He did not elaborate. Some things were beyond words. Some bonds existed only in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, in the trust that did not need explanation. That night, Elias and Kaylee returned to their routine of shared quiet in the cabin. She pressed herself to him, head resting against his chest, her hands lightly touching his torso. He could feel her life steadying around his heartbeat, a rhythm that matched, synced, and resonated with him. You saved me in more ways than one, she whispered, not just from the dangers of space, but from the emptiness inside. I had been waiting for someone who would not abandon me, someone who would let me exist fully without fear. You are that person. Elias closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. He had never imagined being so essential to another being. He had never imagined a connection that transcended species, that defied the rules of biology and distance. But here it was. I didn't save you alone, he murmured. We saved each other, and I think that's how life should be. Not alone. Together. Kaylee's eyes glimmered with emotion, the soft light reflecting in her tears. Together, she agreed. Always. As the shuttle glided through the endless dark, Elias felt a profound sense of peace. He realized that heroism was not always about grand battles or daring rescues. Sometimes it was about presence. Sometimes it was about being steady, being patient, being alive for someone else when they could not survive alone. And in that simple, unspoken truth, Elias found meaning. He tightened his hold slightly, feeling the pulse of life beneath his hand. Kaylee pressed closer,